Welcome to Teledyne Marine's mini-series. My name is Matt Berdini. Stay tuned as we've got a great episode ahead of us with Stockton Rush from OceanGate. Welcome, Stockton. Stockton is the CEO of OceanGate, which he founded in 2009. He also co-founded and is a member of the board of trustees of OceanGate Foundation, which is a nonprofit. It's dedicated to the importance of exploring the ocean, inspiring students, and educating community leaders to better advocate for our oceans. Interesting fact that most folks may not know is Stockton also became the youngest jet transport rated pilot in the world when he obtained his DC-8 captain's rating in 1981 at the age of 19. Over the past 20 years, he has also overseen the development of multiple successful IP ventures, and he's actually a perfect guest for Teledyne as he truly embodies, probably one of the only people who truly embodies, our mantra of deep space to deep sea. Very welcome to have you. And obviously, without further ado, let's get going. We're really excited for today's discussion. I'm going to start with the obvious. You and I have had the opportunity to work together over the last couple of years, but tell us a little bit about OceanGate.
Well, founded OceanGate about 10 years ago when I discovered that you really can't go in a sub other than maybe a tourist sub in Hawaii, but going underwater beyond scuba diving depth is really something that's not accessible. And wanted to change that, wanted to take people underwater to change how people relate to the ocean. Because if you don't really experience it, it's hard to appreciate the subsea environment just with videos, and looked at opportunities to be able to make money taking people underwater, because that was one of the limitations, and looked at commercial opportunities and really settled on the early big opportunity being high-end adventure tourism. Mostly to the Titanic is the thing most people think about, but we've done missions to all kinds of other locations, and we also do commercial and military contracts here and there.
Where did you get the idea for OceanGate?
I really wanted to be a space explorer, and I realized a little late in life that every species to be discovered in our solar system is probably in the ocean. And I really didn't want to be a space explorer. I wanted to be an explorer and an adventurer. And that's really what drew me into, having been a scuba diver, drew me into subs. I wanted to rent a sub at one point, found out I couldn't do that. And that took me down the path of creating my own sub and then my own sub business.
Although most people don't know, you actually have a long history with Teledyne, specifically in the Pacific Northwest. Tell us about this and how you actually got originally connected with us.
Well, I was building my own two-man sub, and I'm a private investor prior to starting this business. And a company called Blueview Technologies presented, they were looking to raise capital. I really just wanted to use their sonar on the sub. So I went and sat down with the three founders at that point, and we had a nice chat. I didn't, at the time they were looking at recreational applications, not commercial. And, was exposed to it. And about 2 years later, a friend of mine was advising them on a capital raise, and they had pivoted to making devices for military and commercial applications. I came up with a deal to join their board and get a screaming hot price for a Blueview sonar. Put that on my two-man sub. I think it was the first Blueview sonar or multi-beam sonar on a manned sub, and was on the board all the way through the acquisition of Blueview by Teledyne. It was a great experience. One of the funnest boards I've ever been on. It really was instrumental to advancing, helping them, and them helping me. In the end, I think I ended up working 2 or 3 sonars out of them.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, those good times back then. Yeah. So speaking of vehicles, do you want to tell us a little bit about your fleet? How many vehicles do you have now, and sort of what are your plans?
Yeah, so other than the sub, my personal sub, that I don't dive very much, OceanGate has 3 submersibles. They all can take 5 people. It's important that you have at least space for 4 in a sub if you're going to do a adventure tourism kind of application. You need the pilot, the person who knows what you're looking at, because it's not that interesting if you don't have an expert in the sub telling you what you're looking at, and then 2 people, because you really want to share an experience like that. You don't want to do that alone. So all our subs take 5 people. It also gives us enough depth of field to do a lot of filming, which is another opportunity. So we have Antipodes, which can go to 300 meters or 1,000 feet. We have Cyclops 1, which goes to 500 meters or 1,600 feet. And then we have Titan, which is 4,000 meters, and that's the one that's going to the Titanic.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit more, I guess, about the technology that went into the submarines. I understand you bought some of those components from previous owners, some were conversions, but I think you've done quite a bit of technology development on your own, I think specifically in the hull design for Titan. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, our first sub, Antipodes, was an existing ABS class sub, and we use that as our training sub. So we learned what our clients wanted. We made some modifications. We added the blue view sonar to it. Then when we went to Cyclops 1, we took a steel hull, and gutted it, and that was the only part of the sub that we used. And we again added a bunch of a blue view and a variety of Botech lights and things like that to that sub. And then Titan is a full ground up build, and the big advance there is using carbon fiber and titanium for the hull. To be able to get us a hull that is light enough and large enough and strong enough to get to the Titanic with 5 people.
So hearing, and I heard you talk a little bit about this, but you know, I know we've partnered, Teledyne's partnered with OceanGate to assist in some of the technology capabilities, obviously some support as well. You know, seeing some of the exciting things you guys are doing on the submersibles. How do you currently use these, and you know, what part has it played in your current operations?
Well, you know, for us, one of the most enabling components is the multi-beam sonar. So when I started the business, old timers in the industry told me I was nuts, and they continue to tell me that, but they said it earlier with more conviction. And partly because I said I was going to take inexperienced pilots in a submarine, in current, in zero visibility, in Puget Sound. And they thought I was insane. I said, you don't underappreciate what multi-beam sonar does for situational awareness. In the old days with the scanning sonars that weren't very accurate, you just couldn't do what we can do. We regularly train our pilots in 1 to 2 foot visibility on a 300-foot shipwreck and 250 feet off of the mouth of Port of Everett, where we can get knots, you know, a knot or 2 of current. So that's been a critical component in all the subs, is making sure we have 1, if not 2, multi-beam sonars. We then added the 3D, the BB5000, and did do 3D scans, done those of a number of wrecks. We have, for the deep sub, we needed, what I want to do is have acoustic data communication, because I find nothing more annoying than someone trying to call me from the surface. So being able to have a regular transmission of the sub status, and then we can text message back and forth, I prefer to having someone calling me up and ruining whatever we're working on. So we have the Benthos ATM system. We actually did some development. Teledyne was great to send out a tech rep out to the Bahamas for better part of a week to help us integrate the DAT system for USBL tracking. Said that Botech lights. We've really tried to take commercial off-the-shelf technology and implement it into a manned submersible solution. And it's been great working with all the products that are in sort of the Teledyne Marine family.
Yeah, no, excellent. I know it's been a pleasure working with you guys through this adventure. It's certainly exciting, but I think adventure is the right word. You know, you've been known to say an adventure is when things don't go as planned. And this is actually when there's usually an interesting outcome. You've got to have some great stories about this. Anything you want to share?
Well, it's the challenge is what we do with our subs is we try to operate with ships of opportunity. And the ship cost is, as most people in the maritime world know, is the big expense. So being able to operate with smaller vessels when you're close to shore, and then only use the larger ones when you have to be way offshore, and how you work between those. We have these this launch and recovery platform allows us to operate without an A-frame or a man-rated crane, so we can tow it out and drop the platform down and have the sub take off. And that's an amazing experience to take off and then land. Really, it adds the nice bookend to a dive. I think the most amazing dive I did was the first solo dive I did to 4,000 meters. We had a lot of challenges, as people I think understand, with data communication through the water column. Partly because we don't behave like an AUV or where we send a standard data packet out and it's more horizontal range than vertical. We went straight through a thermocline, a density difference. I was down about 3,000 meters all by myself, racing along, and these white particles are flying by of marine snow as I'm cruising through, and it was like something out of a Star Trek screen. And they're all alone and jamming this thing forward to get down to 4,000 meters as these what looked like stars go flying by, and then every so often an invertebrate would go racing by. And that was, I think, the most amazing dive, to be down that deep alone, not talking to anybody. And it was the first time anybody had been in the sub down there. So it had a certain amount of adrenaline.
Yeah, so it sounds like I think you were the second person ever to travel is that deep. I think James Cameron was the only other person at the time who had actually made that solo dive that deep, right? Yeah,
that is correct.
Yep. So you're obviously getting ready for something. I think that something is most people know is a visit to the Titanic and start to take paying customers down. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that? What you guys are up to, and what's next?
Yeah, so the Titanic is just such a huge draw. As I like to say, there are only three things the average person knows are in the ocean. That's whales, sharks, and the Titanic. It's the most known brand, the most known object, and there's just this huge desire to go to it. Personally, I'm really excited about going to hydrothermal vents and some undiscovered wrecks, but the Titanic is just a huge draw. They had run tourist dives to the Titanic using the Russian Mir subs. And so we've looked at what was done over a decade ago and prior to that, and had to make our own sub because, as I said, we needed to have at least four places. And then really didn't like the concept of just going and looking at it. So really what we want to do, all our dives have a mission, and our goal is to go back to the Titanic year after year, scan it with sonar, laser scanners, 4K video, and document the wreck and its decay and discover what we can discover. But really, it's an exploration mission, not a tourist mission. So we involve our clients in the planning of the mission. They also go on the dive, and then we have 4 external high-def cameras, a 4K camera. They will review that video imagery. They can help us with the sonar and the laser scanning. It's really a all-encompassing 8-day trip at sea to see the wreck, and a fairly small group, 6 to 9 people on the client side.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would love to do that. That would be super cool. So as far as technology goes, we mentioned what do you think is the biggest sort of technology improvement or gain to be made yet to sort of make this type of exploration, I guess more commonplace or at least more practical? It's a big accomplishment.
Yes, and we had to look at a couple of different factors. As I mentioned, launch and recovery and mobilization, demobilization expense is the big cost.
Yeah.
All our systems are designed to fit in a standard shipping container, so we can mobilize across country cost effectively. And then we have this launch platform, which allows us to operate in much higher sea states than we would be able to do if we had to launch off the side of a ship. So that was sort of a necessary advance to get the cost down and the utility up. When we look just at the sub, this carbon fiber hull is a huge thing. The carbon fiber has been used for autonomous underwater vehicles, but never anything as large as what we're doing. Some work was done by the Navy decades ago, and the determination was you can't use composites, but that was not using aerospace grade manufacturing and the kinds of controls that go into making units that are used on planes as primary structures. So a lot of the arguments against carbon fiber in submersibles were very similar to the arguments against using composites in aircraft. And having built my own plane, fiberglass plane 30 years ago and still flying it, I realized you can do it. You just have to do it right. And that's been the big advance. I think with those pieces, really people just want to see us execute, because if the trip itself is not just the sub and the ship, but it's everything from customs and overland transportation and permitting and mobilization out and back. And then of course you're always subject to weather and waves. And can we execute the number of dives? What's the reliability? We've done a lot to make sure all our systems are line replaceable units. We keep a lot of spares, so we believe we can do a dive a day. And that's going to be, I think, the big hurdle. And really, we want to capture the imagination of as many people as possible of all the great things to do underwater, so that we don't just take people to the Titanic, but we do take them to the hydrothermal vents, and we do take them to ancient Roman and Greek wrecks in the Mediterranean, or a number of World War II battle sites. So all of those, I think, are that's our goal. Really expand the awareness and then the availability, because a lot of while the Titanic is $125,000 a person, we do dives in the Puget Sound, looking for 6-gilled sharks and things like that are at $5,000. Ultimately, we think we can get the price much more attainable.
Nice. Excellent.
All right. So Stockton, I think you mentioned a little bit of it as we talked through, but there's no doubt you've seen some significant challenges. I think maybe one of the ones on the top of the list is, I've heard you guys experienced a lightning strike in the Bahamas while working and doing some testing down there. That certainly is a feat to overcome as you're out in the field. How did you guys get over that?
Yes, I mean, fortunately, it was not a direct strike. So a direct strike to the carbon fiber probably would have taken us totally out. But it basically made its way into every piece of electronics inside the sub. And fortunately, we are using commercial off-the-shelf and line replaceable items. So in the matter of a couple of days, we were able to replace all those components. But we continue to have issues on connectors, penetrators, wiring. Lightning can do weird things. That pushed our testing back, and we ended up having to cancel that. It was back in 2018. We've had a lot of challenges, as I mentioned, on communications, and just the way we operate is just different than most deep sea systems. And so, we send odd messages in odd times, and we need to be it to be received all the time, as opposed to an AUV that might just send a standard message and really does its big data dump when it gets to the surface. So working on those challenges, things that we just working in the Bahamas. We spent 1.5 years doing dive operations in the Bahamas. It's a very corrosive environment, so dealing with supposed stainless steel parts that aren't stainless, or other parts that rust almost instantaneously. And then, as I said, this challenge of small vessels, and it seems that there's no shortage of challenges. Had I only known how hard it would be. When you look back, they're just barriers to entry now. At the time, they were barriers to success.
Yeah. No, very nice. Very nice. Anything else for yourself, Dan?
I was just, one quick follow-up on that. I think people underestimate the challenges that come without being able to communicate effectively with subsea assets. I think, we all know that from a robotic standpoint. Obviously, we build a lot of robotic systems, AUVs. And I think that, to me, that's one of the bigger, bigger challenges still yet to overcome, not just with manned submersibles, but unmanned as well. And, when you don't have that constant communication link or some way of changing directions or, giving new instructions, it makes it really difficult. So not to plug our own device, but I think, adding the modem to, the obviously helps a lot with that. As you said, just even getting text data or, oxygen levels or temperatures or whatever in a regular communication path with the surface, big difference in just understanding what the health and status is. It doesn't have to be, as you said, phone messages or voice comms, but just getting some amount of data is really great acoustics. Yeah, we're super happy to participate in that. Yeah.
Yeah, we've received great technical support to overcome these challenges. For us, what we find is on the surface, they want to know every moment what's going on, and with the sub not being tethered, they don't get to see it, and so they're just dying to know what's happening. When you're in the sub, you could care less about them, and you don't want to waste any time talking to the surface. So this ability to have regular messages go up and give depth and location and power levels and things like that is really valuable. And one of the things that is tough to overcome is the nature of the ocean being different. When our first dive, there was a very serious thermocline at about 300 meters, and one, the sub just stopped, couldn't go any deeper. Two, once you got through that, your communications data rate dropped. And then there was another significant data density shift in the water at about 2,500 meters. So, we got through, once we stopped on the first dive and loaded up the sub a little heavier on the next one, we got down to 2,500 meters and you just sat there. You couldn't get any deeper without motoring through it. So those kind of challenges you don't know until you get out there. You can't test them in a lab. And the data that's available on the differences in salinity and temperature and how that affects acoustic transmissions and sub performance, it's just not there. So it's great to be, in some ways it's great to be a pioneer, and another, it would be nice if someone did some bushwhacking. So,
those thermoclines can be nasty. Yeah, we, as you know, given that we do a lot of deep water communications, as you said, it can get especially challenging in certain waters. Yeah, that's excellent.
So Stockton, we had a great opportunity late last year when we were up in the Puget Sound to actually go down in one of your submersibles, which was absolutely fantastic. And you don't really realize the opportunity or the magnitude of being able to get that close to things in the deep sea that are largely untouched, undisturbed. You talked a lot about the Titanic. There's obviously a lot of folks who want to get out and see a lot of these things that very few people in the world have the opportunity to see. What's next on the radar for you?
Well, we're actually, our next project is going to be the Hudson Canyon in the sub that you went in Cyclops 1. We'll be doing that in August, just taking 12 clients out to explore. The Hudson Canyon's had very little exploration. A lot of it's been down deep. We'll be doing the mouth of it at around 500 meters. We are planning to head down to the Bahamas. We received approval from the Bahamian government to do dives down there. And so that plan is for December through April. We're working with the University of the Bahamas on some projects they would like to pursue with us. Then we got the Titanic next summer. And then after the Titanic, we'd like to do, we'll do the Hudson Canyon right before that. But when we go back next year, we'll go deep. We'll go down to 3,000 meters or so. And right before we head out to the Titanic. And after that, we're thinking we'd like to go to the Mediterranean. Croatia is a wonderful location with lots of World War II and World War I aircraft and ships, crystal clear water, and a lot of wealthy clients in yachts. So it'd be good environment. And then there's some great things in the Mediterranean, some ancient Roman wrecks, things like that we would like to explore. So right now, the focus is Titanic. But that's just the opening of all the things we'd like to do. And as I mentioned, I really want to go do hydrothermal vents. And so exploring one of the thousands of hydrothermal vents is really high on my bucket list of items.
So Stockton, obviously, as you are, in the submarine, one of the most challenging perspectives when you have no visibility and you're mid-water column, there's nothing that you can use a sonar to position yourself off of. How do you understand your navigation and where you're going?
Yes. Yeah. Well, so we have, as you're descending, you've got your depth and altitude, distance off the bottom. We have a Teledyne DVL. We've used two different versions for giving us the range. And that's pretty critical. When you get close to the bottom, you have to get ready to drop some weight so you don't go crashing into it or thrust. So getting that notification 200 meters above the bottom is critical. And then when we use our laser scanning system, we need correction data for through water speed, currents, and the like to keep the errors down. And that's a key element with the having the DVL on the sub.
So, Stockton, we've talked a lot about your background and your life. You've done a lot of really amazing things. What, outside from your family, what would you call one of your major accomplishments so far?
Well, I think there are a couple things, and they all revolve around sort of doing something first. You know, when I had I built my own ultralight after college, and flying that the first time was a unique experience. Certainly when I got my DC-8 type rating at 19, that was something people again told me couldn't be done. I only had 600 hours mostly in single engine Cessnas before I got that. Flying the fiberglass plane that I built was, you know, an amazing experience. And then really, I think the greatest thing, the thing I'm most proud of is what we've done at OceanGate. It's the first business that I've started and run. I've run a number of businesses, but most of those have been turnarounds or an advisory role. To actually create a company, build a team, build a product, and see it be successful is really an amazing feeling. And then, as I mentioned, that solo dive was from an individual perspective something that's amazing. But it really has been, for me, getting right to where we are to be able to finally do the Titanic with this sub is something I'm really proud of, and we really had a great team effort to do that.
So Stockton, obviously, we had the great opportunity to go and dive on one of your submersibles in Puget Sound, and I think one of the things that was abundantly clear was, you know, the professionalism of the team. You guys were a well-oiled machine. Everybody knew their spots, and you know, the tenure of a lot of these folks, you know, was obviously not significant. A lot of young folks coming out of school, but everybody knew their role and they executed it flawlessly. You know, tell me a little bit about how you guys do that and the importance of that to your organization.
Yes, I mean, when I started the business, one of the things you'll find, there are other sub operators out there, but they typically have gentlemen who are ex-military submariners, and you'll see a whole bunch of 50-year-old white guys. I wanted our team to be younger, to be inspirational, and I'm not going to inspire a 16-year-old to go pursue marine technology. But a 25-year-old, you know, who's a sub pilot or a platform operator, or one of our techs, can be inspirational. And so we've really tried to get very intelligent, motivated, younger individuals involved, because we're doing things that are completely new. We're taking approaches that are used largely in the aerospace industry, is related to safety and some of the preponderance of checklists, things we do for risk assessments and things like that that are more aviation related than ocean related. And we can train people to do that. We can train someone to pilot the sub. We use a game controller, so anybody can drive the sub. And we also want our team to have a variety of different background. You know, you're going to go to the Titanic. You're going to be spending 8 days on a boat. You don't want every person to have the same experience of having been on a U.S. nuclear sub or worked for Atlanta submarines, and they all have the same background. You know, we've got one guy who, you know, threw the hammer as a varsity athlete. We have one gentleman who's done everything. He goes and surfs in Iceland in the winter. But really get people who have a diverse background, and then train them and train so that it does come off as a polished and safe operation. But really looking beyond that experience in the sub, and what's the time on the boat going to be like with these people, and that makes for a great team. You know, we're selling to our clients a really enjoyable participatory environment, and that means everybody in our team and our company needs to be an engaging, you know, kind, fun, but highly competent individual. Going to a equipment supplier like Teledyne that has multiple products across their platform that fill multiple needs for us is something that we really needed. And when we really have built not just our internal team, but our external team, and trying to find the best of breed, but in particular, a company like Teledyne that has things from sonars to lights to DVLs to acoustic modems, that makes it a lot easier. You've got one entity to deal with. Some of the integration issues can be handled easier. And it's really been a pleasure over the last 10 years to work with Teledyne and the Blueview company.
All right. I think last question for me. I guess we'd be remiss without mentioning the current pandemic that we're all dealing with right now. How has it impacted OceanGate? How are you guys doing with it? And do you see that? I guess what lessons learned or takeaways do you have from it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've been fortunate. Right now, we're rebuilding the Titan submersible, the original carbon fiber hull. We used we refer to it as maritime. It was a wet layup format, and it did not have the durability for the multiple cycles of the Titanic. So we're now working with NASA and other aerospace manufacturers on a replacement of the carbon fiber. So being in that development mode, a lot of what our our effort is our engineers and sales and marketing, all of whom can generally work pretty well from home. I think the big revelation for a lot of us older managers was how much productivity people actually could have. In fact, we have people complaining that there is no work-life balance and they're working too hard. But it's with these new tools with Zoom, and we use Microsoft Teams and Smartsheet and a variety of Onshape, bunch of other things. The collaborative tools are so much better now that I think we will. I'm certain we're going to have quite a few people who are going to work from home, probably 2 to 3 days a week. Our operations team is the one that really has to be in the shop, and in their interest of safety, even though we are an essential business, being maritime and all. Our concern was with the employees. So our operations guys worked from home. We just brought two individuals back this week, but they were able to do a lot of procedure writing. That's always something. There's always paperwork that people don't want to do, particularly if your day job is diving a sub and driving around outdoors. Coming home and writing a procedure just doesn't make it to the top. So we were able to push it to the top of their list, and they've been quite productive. So we've been fortunate that we weren't planning on significant revenue this year, because it's hard to convince someone to get in a sub with 4 people they don't know when you've got a virus floating around. Sure. And we're looking at how we're going to be able to do that going forward, likely with, hopefully we have some of these 15-minute tests that people can do before we lock them in a container and all their germs.
Yeah. I think I'm with you. It's been amazing in my mind how it's sort of impacted our day, because we're still completely open as well. Everybody's working. Most of the sales teams from home, production people, as you said, in the factories, practicing safe distancing, et cetera. But I think we found that at least on my team, people are very productive. As you said, there's less interruptions. There's ability to really focus on, what we're doing. And from that standpoint, I think it's been pretty amazing. And I'm with you. It's sort of also remarkable that all of these tools we've actually had on our laptops or our computers for years, not really used or taken advantage of it. And I'm sure now all the coding, the coder, the Microsoft, and pretty exciting. Actually, people are finally using tools that they've known has existed for years. But no, it's great. And I'd say even something like this is not something we would have probably done 3 or 4 months ago. We've talked about it. This is, something we certainly will have wanted to do, but it's great to actually be able to sit and do this kind of thing. So for us, it's really exciting to reach out and talk to people like yourself and our other customers, and really tell great stories and hear about how all this great work we're all doing on the ocean is really benefiting. It's really exciting. So yeah, so I for one really want to thank you for joining us. It's been great. Yeah.
Well, thank you. My pleasure. It's been great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. I know it's been brief, but certainly always interesting to chat with you and hear your perspectives. So much appreciated. Hey, thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Teledyne Marine's link page for new exciting content. Stay tuned for more episodes coming your way, and I look forward to catching you next time.